be the change. Well, be the change is actually something Mahatma Gandhi said. And why I chose this topic today is because life is change. All of us know this. The only time where we're not changing is actually when we're dead. And that's the only time where everything in your life will be still and everything in your life will not move anymore. So the trick really is whether we can not just dance with the change, but also be the change itself. Now, I don't think you live once. I hope not, because that would be really boring. And I know I picked wrong the first time. But I think we all live many, many different lives. And I just want to quickly take you through my life. So up in the upper left-hand corner, actually I should say there is a photograph that's missing from this, which is me as a very small, nerdy, bespectacled child. When I was about 8 years old, my best friend was this beautiful quarter Malay, quarter Indian, half Chinese girl. And I used to go over to her house for sleepovers all the time. And her mother would call me bag of bones. Bag of bones, she would say, stop running about the house. Can't you just like be a normal girl? And I would ignore her, of course, because she was just my best friend's mother. And many years later, almost 3 decades later, I met this lady again at a reception at the Irish embassy. And I said, oh, how nice to see you again. And I was all dressed up in the cheongsam, trying to be elegant. And she said, oh, bag of bones, it's you again. And that lady was none other than our chairwoman yesterday, Nor Kwek. So she knows me as bag of bones. And every time we see each other again, which we do very often because we sit on the same philanthropic board, she never fails to remind me that I have had many, many lives since I was bag of bones, being a nasty little influence on her daughter, running around and creating trouble. So then my first job was in investment banking, so that's a little agitated slide in the corner, photograph in the corner. And I'll never forget my first day at training. I was in a European investment bank, it was a very prestigious investment bank, and I had to go to London for training. And my first day of training, the global MD of telcos walked into the room, and this investment bank had a policy that the top leaders of the bank will have to train the new recruits to inculcate them with a sense of culture. So I thought it was going to be a wonderful, inspirational speech about how I was going to make a difference and how I was going to be the difference. But actually, he said, everyone, please take out your mobile phones. There were about 150 of us, small, scared little things, from all over the world. This is a global intake from this bank. And we all took out our company-issued Blackberries and mobile phones and put them on the table. And he said, right, so from now on, whenever that thing in front of you rings, you will answer it. And if you don't answer it, you've got 10 minutes to ring back, or you'll be fired. Because there's only 2 reasons that you will not answer that phone. And the first reason is that you're taking a shower, and the second reason is that you're having sex. And he says, and neither of these things should take longer than 10 minutes. So that was really an eye-opener to me, and that pretty much sums up investment banking in those days, and pretty much still today, where you have this Faustian pact, and you sign over your soul precisely because you're paid so much, and precisely because you know what you're getting into. You sign it over, and then you realize you don't own yourself anymore. And then wherever I looked, I found myself getting frustrated by things like politicking, sucking up, backstabbing, things like that. And I got disillusioned. And then I decided, when I became a mother, and I have 3 children now, but I decided to basically step out and try my hand at different things. So me in the ball gown, that's me doing my philanthropic bit. Nora and I sit on a charity called the Singapore Ireland Fund. Every year we raise $650,000 for different causes like hospices, like autism, like Asperger's, like dementia, like Alzheimer's. At the bottom is my Thai face when I became a mother, And I decided, well, you know, I'll sort of do the Tai thing and sort of learn how to have female friends. Because unfortunately in investment banking, I didn't have any female friends. It's a male-dominated industry. It was an incredible experience for me to experience the power and the sincerity and the sisterhood, which I had never experienced in my life as a banker. And then in the middle, I've got this shot of me with my team at one of the retreats that we ran in, I think this was in Suri in Bali. We run retreats all around the world. We've run them in Bhutan, in Vietnam, in Indonesia, in Sumba, in Bali, in Australia. And that's me being the leader of my team. It's a very flat and equal team. And then that's me moving from Singapore to Australia. So 5 years ago, I bought a farm. We bought a farm and a vineyard. And I live in Australia right now, talking about being in a man's world. There's nothing more like taking my guns license to really remind me that you're in a man's world, because I rocked up to Melbourne, to Frankston. Actually, we call it Franganistan. It's a really bad part. It's a really bad part of Melbourne. And I rocked up to take my my long-armed rifle license because I wanted to protect my farm, being the mummy, and very protective about my animals. So we have lots of foxes in our area, and foxes, they look very cute in the media, but they're actually cruel things. They will wait for our lambs to be born. I have baby lambs that come every season, and they actually wait for them to be delivered, and then they eat just the face. And then they leave the baby lamb to die. So, you know, this is not acceptable. So I got my guns license to teach them a lesson. Actually, this is funny because I have a very interesting life on the farm. I balance my farm life with my working life and my philanthropic life. And it's very interesting because my husband gets really confused. So last month was lambing season, and I had to deliver a lot of lambs. In the countryside, you have to be very self-sufficient. And I was at school doing the drop-off, and the mummies were saying to me, what are you doing? And I said, oh, I think I'm going to deliver a lamb. And they said, oh, okay. And then we ended up having this conversation where all the mummies were giving me advice. What, you need a shoelaces? Why do you need shoelaces? Oh, you need shoelaces to loop around the shoulders in case they get stuck, then you have to push. But first you need to get the KY jelly. So why do you need the KY jelly? Oh, you need it to lubricate your arm. So when you put it inside, then, you've got to put the suction. So then I go off to the pharmacy, and I come back with the shoelaces, and I come back with like 5 tubes of KY jelly and like iodine and everything, and I put it out on the dining table, forget about it. And my husband comes back and he says, he looks at all this lubricant and his shoelaces, and he says, darling, have you been reading 50 Shades of Grey? I said, no. Actually, that's for the lambs. And I think he was a little bit disappointed. But anyway, so that's the last picture is my Christmas card, and that's us sitting on our trusty red tractor, enjoying the beautiful Australian summer. And there's a little photo of me holding one of my alpacas that I had to give a vitamin D injection to. So it's pretty much a lot of lives that you see there from banking, but yet I think that we all grow through embracing change. Now, one thing that I learned, talking about being disillusioned by investment banking, I thought, oh my goodness, this place, this whole sector, this whole culture is so terrible. Everywhere I look, there are flatterers and backstabbers and this kind of thing. And then after that, when I changed my profession to going into wellness, and I started working with therapists and spiritual teachers and like amazing meditation experts, and there were still egos involved. And there were still flatterers, there were still backstabbers, there were still people who overpromised and underdelivered, and there were still people that were into the covering your ass thing that when you turn around, you're like, where have they gone? And why am I all alone? So then I realized something really important, which is, now the problem is not out there. How we see the world is actually how we are. Yesterday's guest of honor, Minister Grace Fu, I actually encountered her 28, hang on, that's not right. Shouldn't give precise numbers. 15 years ago when I started my banking career. And I was sitting on the opposite side of the table, and at that point of time, PSA was trying to explore whether they should do an IPO or not. And I used to dread those meetings. I really dreaded them because I had this conception that Minister Fu was this dragon lady who would squint at the numbers and then, give us this edict, which was to go back and work on it and start all over again. And back then, my view on female leaders was quite constricted. They were either dragon ladies, they were harridans, they were unsupportive, they were so on. And that was because how I saw the world was how I was. I wasn't very conscious then. I was very young, I was very immature. And if you're looking for negativity, you will find it. You will find it out there. If you're looking for anything, if you're looking for bitchiness, if you're looking for this, if you're looking for that, you will find it. And if that's what your attention goes to, you will find it. And what we have to do, which we can do right here, right now, starting from today, is work on ourselves. Because where our attention and our focal point goes to is what we will be, is who we will become, is who we will grow into. And yesterday when I watched Minister Fu talk very frankly and candidly about her struggles and what it was like a mother, I really saw her for the first time as a human being, as a really complete person. And nothing had changed about her. It was me. It was my own journey that had allowed me to grow in wisdom and therefore see other women as how they deserve to be seen. Oh, sorry, one last thing. So finding meaning is an inside job. So we have to start with ourselves. And it's not about magical thinking, because I think when we start off in work, it's always this magical thinking. If only I had that boss. If only I had a mentor, if only I had this or that, then my life would be perfect. But actually, you can't control anything 100%, but yourself. You can control yourself 100%. So, with control comes responsibility. So you have 100% responsibility to yourself, to control yourself, and make sure that you're doing the best by yourself. So we need to take total responsibility for ourselves instead of saying, this person is a dragon lady, this person is whatever. You start by working on yourself and seeing how can I best focus my attention on the positive. The antidote to exhaustion is actually wholeheartedness. That means when we work from a place of wholeheartedness, from a place of passion, we sleep at night and yes, we go to bed tired, we all go to bed tired, but when we wake up in the morning, we are renewed again. We are not depleted. And when we have this sense of tiredness, it's a good kind of tired. It's a kind of I've accomplished something kind of tired. It's not a people are sucking the life out of me kind of tired, which is very different. So another reason why it's important to find meaning in your work is also why are we here? What is going to be my contribution to the universe on a very spiritual level? It doesn't matter what religion you are. I think every religion has that question. What is my contribution to the world? Why do I exist? And these are really, really big questions that sometimes we don't ask. Sometimes we are so busy trying to make money, trying to earn a living, we forget to ask about the meaning of life. And I have so many global CEOs and chairmen who come to my retreats, and they are billionaires, they are multi-millionaires, but they come to me and they say, I feel bankrupt. I don't think that I know what it's about. I don't know what it's for. I get tired all the time and I'm faking it and I'm exhausted. But actually depression has nothing to do with sadness and has very little to do with stress. What depression is homesickness. And what I mean by homesickness is that it's a craving or it's a longing, it's a little radar in you that knows when you have strayed so far away from your personal values, from your spiritual values, from your true home in yourself. And that is the evolutionary function of depression. It's actually your little canary in the coal mine that's singing to say something is wrong, change it, come home to yourself. Task. So what we teach at Legacy Retreat is how to understand yourself. And one of the things we teach is this tool called the Enneagram system, which is quite complicated and it's a lot of things to absorb, but basically the gist of it is that you have to understand what is the fuel that drives you. So for example, there are 9 basic motivations that every human being has. And sometimes each of us has a main motivation. And in order to be truly emotionally intelligent, we have to empathize and understand why people are doing the things they do. For example, if my boss comes into the office and he's wearing a blue shirt, and he says to my colleague, "Hey, do you like my shirt?" And my colleague says, "Yes, yes, it's very nice, it's really, really nice." And of course, I'm going to think he's a sucker. And I'm going to think he's doing it to be recognized. And maybe he wants a promotion, maybe he wants a whatever. But actually, there are 9 different reasons why he could have said that. He could be saying that because he's number 9, a diplomat, he just wants peace. Okay, I don't want to rock the boat. I'm just going to say it's nice, and then maybe he's going to go away. Or it could be number 6, that to keep myself safe. I don't want this guy to cut my bonus. I better make him happy. We protect, I don't want him to get retrenched by pissing him off. So that's my motivation to keep myself safe. Like the type 5, very easy. I just said your shirt's nice to conserve energy. I don't want to waste my time. Okay, your shirt's very nice. Now go away, please leave me alone. I am too busy for this stuff. So basically, the fuel that drives you is very, very important. Because a lot of the time, Myers-Briggs personality systems, they tell you what you do. You're an extrovert, you like to stand on stage, you like to compliment people's shirts, whatever. But it doesn't tell you why you do them. We can both be ENSTs or ENTPs or whatever it is. But it really doesn't tell you anything about the motivations behind that surface behavior. So when you understand what's driving somebody, it is like an X-ray, like having X-ray goggles, where you can suddenly realize, actually, we're having this conflict. Like me and my husband are quarreling about going on this holiday, and that's because his need is for safety. He doesn't think we have enough money to go on holiday or whatever, blah, 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 and he's coming from that place. And my need is, for example, to be recognized as being successful. I want the photos to post on Facebook that we've gone to this amazing vacation or whatever. But when we can come to a need-to-need level, that's when we can say, we can support each other and really be useful. We have 4 major aspects to ourselves. We have our mind, we have our emotions, we have our body, and we have our spirit. And what happens is, a lot of times we are here. We are our mind and emotions, and this goes back and forth. For example, I could have realized today, using my mind, that I made a mistake in the model, the Excel model that I built. And then that makes me feel really bad about myself. You're so stupid. And then I feel shame and I feel guilt. And then I start using my mind again, which is the critic, to say, well, maybe we can strategize by building a better model. And then I go to my emotions again, and I say, well, now I'm really scared that I have no time or whatever. And we go back and forth and back and forth. This is the ego. This is actually our ego. And another word for this that we use at Legacy is, this is the shitty committee. Because they will conspire and they will drive you crazy with their noise going back and forth. And actually, too few of us spend enough time in body and in spirit, which is what we really need. And I'll tell you why, because your mind and your emotions can time travel. They're amazing things. They can worry about something you did in the past. They can be anxious about something that's going to happen in the future. They can regret something that you did. They can strategize about something in the future. And what happens is that we're completely exhausted, and everybody around you, your husband, your kids, you'll be like, Mom's not, the lights are on, but no one's home. You're not present. You just lost being in the now. There is actually a nice story about Maya Angelou. She's a famous American poet. And she went to a friend's house in Senegal. And this friend was a very wealthy friend. And she went into this house, and she observed there was a beautiful oriental rug in the middle of the living room. And everybody was tiptoeing around this rug, but nobody was stepping on the rug. And then she remembered something one of her friends in Paris said, oh, there are all these snobby people who don't like people walking on the rug. And then she remembered that, and she got very angry, and she thought, well, I will show these people a thing or two. I will walk on that rug, and I will show them that nobody will stop me, and I will teach them a thing or two. So she picked herself up, and she walked all over that rug. She walked all over it once, twice, 3, 4 times, and everybody in the room was watching at her. And she was waiting for them to join in, but they were just looking very nervous, and she fell well, these people are not very brave, they're not very evolved. And then 2 maids came in and they rolled up the rug and they went away. And then they came back with the equally beautiful, equally large Oriental rug and they spread it out again. And then they went back to the kitchen and then they came out and they laid silverware and water goblets and flowers and chicken and rice on the rug. And everyone sat on the rug. And then her friend said, everyone please welcome our beloved sister, Maya Angelou from America. And she is going to experience our most wonderful Senegalese banquet. And then Maya Angelou said, it's a good thing I'm chocolate brown because I was burning crimson from embarrassment because I had stepped all over that tablecloth. I had gone into somebody's house and I had just sullied this tablecloth, and just because I, in my high-minded self, in that reaction mode, had actually thought that I was the better person, and she actually wrote, the food had to force its way over that knot of embarrassment in my throat. And I tell the story because, not just because that's reaction versus response, because that is also, probably at that moment where she saw people like huddling around, she had that little contraction, she had that feeling in her tummy, and she was reacting to something in her past that triggered her. Maybe some slight that she had felt or something that but she wasn't in the present. She was reacting to something and she wasn't responding to the truth of the situation. The second reason why I tell this story is because we as women, we are in this amazing period of change and we will do amazing things. However, we have to be mindful not to change for the sake of changing. And I want to talk about mindfulness and meditation. So, you remember we talked about time travel and emotions and mind. Now, your emotions and your mind can time travel, but your body can only exist in the present plane. It cannot time travel. I was one of the sponsors of a charity called Smiling Mind, which you can see the ads for there. It started in October 2012. We, in Australia, we are currently the top free download in the Australian App Store. It's been 400,000 downloads of this app, which is teaching young children meditation for anger management and for mindfulness. It's in 5,000 schools in 2.5 years. It's being rolled out throughout Australia through the schools. We're training the teachers. There's a sport program now. There's a mindfulness postnatal program to help women with postnatal depression. And now there's even a corporate program. So it started off as a not-profit, and now there's a profit arm which has clients such as IBM, Google, Twitter, BP, and Lendlease. And this is 2.5 years. So everyone is coming into this mindfulness thing with tremendous interest because we realize that this is a brave new world we live in. We've got so much overwhelming us, so much noise these days that we need something to ground us. Otherwise, we watch our life just evaporate and we don't know where it went. I want to tell the story about when I was in Bhutan. So I have to arrange these experiences for my guests in Legacy Retreat, and I thought it would be a great idea for them to go to a temple. So I asked Uma Paro, the resort, can you please arrange for us to go to a temple? And they kept on coming back with these responses like, no, like, oh, it's very hard to book a temple. And I was getting very frustrated at them because I'm like, you're a 5-6-star resort, why can't we sort it out? And I was like a bull in a china shop yelling at people or whatever. And then my butler said to me, ma'am, maybe we should go and see the monk of this temple. So, okay, I decided I'll go and see this monk. So I went to the mountain, literally. I went to see the monk, and the monk smiled at me, and then he ushered me to sit, and he offered me some butter tea, yak butter tea, and I drank the yak butter tea, and then we looked at each other, and I smiled, and he smiled, and both of us couldn't understand each other, but I was getting a little bit agitated. I'm like, okay, what's now? What's gonna happen? And he was just looking at me, looking, watching, waiting, and I was getting more and more annoyed. Waiting, wanting to create this change. And I was writing myself up. And then something in me just made me stop. And it just occurred to me that I had to stop and be present. So I just stopped and I looked at the monk. Then he smiled. And then I smiled. And then he went back into the room and he brought out his bamboo scroll calendar and he rolled it all out and he started looking at dates. And that was when I realized, and actually I was cringing in embarrassment because I realized that he was waiting for me to be the change. He didn't, this is his home, his monastery, his sacred place. He wanted somebody with good energy to come into his home. And that was a really meaningful lesson because what I thought the monk was withholding from me was actually what I was withholding from him. So I just want to end off actually on this slide. So these thingies over here are called the pillars of creation. And this is a photograph taken by the Hubble telescope. It's very, very far away, and these pillars are absolutely immense. So from the bottom of this pillar to the top of this pillar is 4 light years long. That means the amount of time it takes from the sun to reach Earth is 8 minutes. If you shot the sun right now, we'd still see it for 8 minutes before it actually went dark. That's 8 minutes. When you light something here, it would take 4 years for you down here to see that light. 1 light year is 5.8 trillion miles long. One of these little tips up here is larger than our entire solar system. So Mars, Jupiter, Venus, everything just fits just like there. And we are like this, and we are so small. We are so tiny. And I don't even know why the universe was made so huge. The pillars themselves are just so tiny because they, again, belong in another million systems that are so much bigger than just this. And sometimes I think, is it because Earth, this intelligent life here, are we a manifestation of the consciousness of the universe? I don't know. But I know that it's really important to get that sense of how small we are, how meaningful we are, yes, but also how small we are, and have that humility. And in Singapore, when I lived here all my life, and I never really saw the stars like the way I do in Australia on my farm. Because in Singapore, the sky is divided into tiny, tiny little slivers. We don't really get to see them, there's so much pollution and everything. And because there's no scale, we have this idea that we're actually really big because there's nothing to, amazing like this to compare ourselves to. In Bhutan, however, you have the backdrop of the Himalayas, which are huge. And wherever you go in Bhutan or in Paro, you are this small, and the mountains behind you are that big, and you feel it. And on some level, you know that you have to harness everything that's within you to make your life meaningful. And you also have to be humble enough to open yourself up to this journey, this amazing journey of learning that we are so privileged to embark on, using all our resources. And lastly, don't waste time. It has to start now. It can't start anytime but now, because life is so short and we are so small, and we can achieve, but we have to do it now. It's not going to wait for us. So lastly, I just want to end with gratitude. So this is something I do not just with my team. I think it's really important to do a gratitude ritual. I'm trying to kill myself here on my shoelace, so that's okay. It's the end of my speech. So gratitude basically is a flow of energy from you to the world. I like to do this with my family every time before we have dinner. We actually get together and we go around the table. We actually hold hands first and we close our eyes and we take a few seconds to be grateful. And then we go around the table and everyone from my 6-year-old to my 16-year-old says one sentence about what they're grateful for. And I think it's a really nice way to connect ourselves with our family, to connect ourselves to why are we doing this? Why are we working so hard? What is it all for? And it's also a really nice thing to do with my team. And now I've gone from investment banking to wellness, but we still have team meetings, and I think it's a really nice thing to do with starting with gratitude. So we always start with gratitude, and we appreciate each other, and then we go into business, and then we end with gratitude. And that is an amazing way of actually dealing with others and raising our consciousness. And I would like to thank everyone here today for listening to my speech and allowing me to be here and be part of this beautiful seminar. Thanks very much.